Hi. In this video, I'm going to go over a bunch of small code examples to hopefully give you tools to use in your toolbox when you're coding Fangames of your own. That's the idea here. Please read the description. There's going to be timestamps in there and probably a few notes that I forgot to mention. I encourage you to follow along on GameMaker if you want. I encourage it so that because if you write the code that I'm going to write, it'll help you remember it better. Here's kind of an outline that I'm going to go over stuff in. I'll show this again at the end of the video. Let's get started. We're going to work on a background effect. So here's my room. I already have all the stuff set up. I'm going to have little squares come up from the bottom. It's sort of like, you see that? It's sort of common in Fangames, and they kind of gradually disappear as they go upwards, and they're going to appear at a random X position. So what's this object? We're going to create a new object called object bg square. This is just going to be one of the squares. I'm going to give it a square sprite. Let me put this in the right folder. Okay. This object in the create event, it's going to go move up. So we're going to set vSpeed equals -3, sure. And let's place it in the room. And this should just move up. And let's also show you how to do something here. So in the step event, let's say we want to make it disappear. We're going to use image alpha, that's like the built-in variable of this object, minus equal to 0.01, which just subtracts this amount every step. And you can tweak this value to make it last longer or shorter. All right, cool. So now we have to make a controller object to spawn a bunch of these. So let's make a new object, object bg controller. And here's how I'm gonna, there's multiple ways you can do timers like this. I'll show you one way. We're gonna have a variable called t in the create event, started at 0. We're gonna increment it by 1 every step. You can also type in ++, whichever one you prefer. And then here we're gonna do if t is greater than 5, t minus equal to 5. So, and then we're gonna spawn the bullet, or spawn the background effect. So I'll tell you why I'm doing this later. So with or var ps equals create 0,608, which is this is the bottom left corner of the screen. Object bg square. All right. And also let me go back into this object, and I forgot to destroy it once it's invisible. So if image is less than or equal to 0, instance destroy. Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of invisible objects way above the screen, and it might lag your game. Always be careful when you create little objects like the square or projectiles in your boss fight. You always either destroy them when they're alpha or when they're outside of the room, which you can do by other outside room, and then drag an instance destroy here. Okay, so let's place this object in the room. Oops. See if this works. All right, cool. And it creates just a bunch of these at the bottom left corner. Now, obviously, we need to randomize their positions. And let's actually make this just add an arbitrary amount so they spawn below the screen. And then instead of x being 0, we're going to use random range 0 to 800. And if you want, we can actually go -20 and 820 to have some squares. You can just see the edge of them, if that makes sense, on the edges of the screen. It's just a little nice touch. Yeah, like this one. All right, cool. We can make this fancy. One thing I want to point out with why I did it this way is you can, this allows you to do fractional amounts. So if I type in 1.5, what's going to happen is the first time it's going to take 2 steps in order for it to spawn, and the next time it's going to take 1 step, and the next time it's going to take 2 steps, then 1. So it allows you to do fractional amounts. And if you do it with alarms, which I'll show you later, you can't do fractional amounts. Let me just add in a little bit of randomness to these guys, just to show you what you can do. Here we're going to have a variable called d_angle, and it's going to be random range -1 to 1. And then every step we're going to do image angle plus equal to the angle. and this will make them spin. And the create event, they choose a random direction they're going to spin. We put it in the create event because you don't want them to spin. You don't want to choose the random number every step event. All right, that's kind of cool. And let's actually in the create event also do image angle random 360. And this is the meme code random 360. It's also the same as random range 0 360. If you don't put the range on, it just assumes it should be 0. Also, so this will, let me just show you. It does what you'd expect. Yeah. You can also do image. Let's memorize the size. Random. 1 is the normal size. Let's do somewhere between 1 and 2. And we can do image y scale equals. You could do this. This will work. We can also do image x scale like this. So that way, if I want to change the size, I only have to edit the code in one place instead of having to edit like both lines. You know, it's not a big deal, but it's just a minor code style thing. All right, that kind of adds a little randomness. If I wanted to, I could also do. There's so many things. I want to make the point. There's so many things you can randomize in both your effects and your boss projectile attacks. It's just everything. Try randomizing everything to make cool attacks and stuff. So image y equals random range 2. You can also do h speed equals random. I can't. There's so many things. I don't want to go overboard because I have other things to do. But yeah. I'm having too much fun. And seeing how they disappear at different points here. Also, this is and I'm not tweaking this. I'm just showing you how to do things. I'm not trying to make it pretty. What is there anything else I wanted to do? Oh yeah. So if I type in for image x scale, if I put in an I here, this is a different function, and it will only return. Let me actually make this a 3, or let's make it a 2. So instead of any decimal between 1 and 2 like it was before, it's going to be either 1 or 2 because it's going to be an integer value. So you see how there are distinctly just 2 sizes of squares? Now it's like so if I put in a 3 here, it's going to be distinctly 3 sizes of squares. All right, so it's kind of hard to tell. That's the difference between random and irandom. Okay, let's move on. The next thing on our list is a lines. I have an idea for a lines attack. So I want to have a line spawn here of bullets and then move down. You have to avoid it, and then sometimes it's going to spawn one in here, and you have to move to the left to avoid it, and it's going to randomly choose between these two. So let's make a new object. Lines. We're going to use alarms for this one. So make an alarm event, alarm 0. We're going to type in. This is how you would make a line of bullets. How I'm going to do it. So we're going to type in 4 var xx equals 0, xx is less than 400, which is halfway across the screen. 16. I'll explain what this does in a minute. So we're going to do var p equals instance create xx 0. Let's do like -20. Just spawn it off screen. Just a little nice production touch. Object projectile, and then p.vspeed equals 5 or 3, or I don't know. Put a semicolon because reasons. So x will start at 0. It'll be incremented by 16 every time, and this loop will stop repeating over and over once this condition stops being true. So that's kind of how loops work. Let's put that object in the room. All right, I forgot to activate the alarm in the create event. So create event 0 equals 30. And I also forgot to reactivate the alarm again. So alarm equals 30. And 30 is how many frames it'll take for the alarm to activate. And there's 12 alarms, 1 through 12. You can use those instead of a timer variable. I don't know why this isn't working. Oh, I know why this isn't working. Let's make this 0. Because I made my projectile destroy itself when it's out of the room. So it's destroying itself immediately on spawn. Okay, there we go. So now this is 1/2, and then now we want to sometimes do left and sometimes right. So we're going to do var a whatever equals choose 1, 2. And then if a is 1, So you can kind of guess what choose does. Here we're gonna do x start at 400, and while it's less than 800, all right, something was not working here because I typed in 4 instead of 5, or 5 instead of 4. Okay, now the cool thing about choose is you can do as many as you want. There's a limit at some point. I forget, but here we're gonna add another chance that it spawns a bullet at the player's Y position that kind of goes toward him. So p equals instance create choose. Okay, all right, yeah. I'll do that later. Choose, so 0 and object player dot y, and then p dot h speed equals 5. So now there's a chance you have to like jump to avoid this projectile. All right. So that sort of makes this attack a little more interesting, I guess. This is a weird attack. Don't get me wrong, but. Okay, let's do choose 0, 800, so sometimes it'll spawn from the right. And then here we're going to do if p.x is greater than 400, which means we spawned it on the right this time. We're going to do p.h speed, multiply it by -1. So now it's going to be, whenever it chooses this attack, there's also a chance it'll spawn from either the right or the left. All right, so they've got 3 rights in a row. Come on, give me a left. All right, there's a left. We were just getting really unlucky. I was scared the code wasn't working. All right, cool. Also, I want to show you, yeah, I shouldn't have closed the game. What happens if the player dies? This will cause an error because we're using the dot operator, and it's accessing the Y position of the player, which does not exist. So if I'm dead, and it tries to spawn a bullet, it'll cause an error. And so what we have to do is surround this with if instance exists object player. You really only have to worry about this with the player most of the time, because most of the time the player is the one where you might not exist. So this will fix it, and what will happen instead is when the code gets here, it will just spawn no projectile, and you can decide the behavior of what happens when the player is dead in your game. Okay, what's next? Assign wobble. This is an easy one. We're gonna do object sign wobble. I'm gonna give it like this sprite, sure. And then in the create event, we're gonna use again this variable t, which we're gonna increment by 1 every step. Let's put the object in the room before I forget. And here we're going to do y, we're going to change the y every frame. Y start is just the position it starts at, that stays constant. It's kind of a useful variable sometimes. So plus sign of something, and then sign will return a value between 1 and -1. We want it to wobble by more than that, so we're going to change it to like 20 or something. Multiply it by 20, and then we're going to put t in here. So let's see what happens. T, we haven't adjusted t at all to how fast we want it to wobble. So it's just going to go really fast. It's kind of funny. You can if you want, you can just try random math here. If you want, you can be more systematic about it for how you want to adjust the period. Like here's a little bit slower. You can look into the function deg2rad. If you could just type it out and then middle click. This is a very useful function I didn't realize until recently. And it'll open up the help for you, and you can look at it. Just middle click on it. You can middle click on a lot of stuff. And also if you type in like object player, you can middle click on that, and it'll open up the player object. Pretty useful. Middle click. Anyways, that's sign wobble. You can use it to make your boss float up and down or whatever. You can also use it for more fancy stuff like attacks. Anyways, what's next? Spiral. So I want to make a spiral that it creates itself starting from here and then goes outward as time goes on. So object spiral. I'm going to have a variable called dir. I'm going to start it at 0. Actually, let's start it at random 360. That'll make the attack a little more interesting because it'll start the spiral at a random direction, if that makes sense. And then here we're going to do dir plus equal to 10. Sure, that's like 1/36 of the way around. And then here we're going to do var p equals instance create y comma object. So this will create one projectile every frame at the point itself, which will be right here. But we want to create it in like a spiral. So let's start by making a circle. Here we're going to do x plus length dir x, and this is where we're going to learn about the length of functions. We're going to do 100 for the length. By the way, you can look at the bottom here to see what arguments are remaining. Dir is going to be our dir variable, which is increasing, and then y plus y, dir, same arguments. So this will create a circle, and it'll keep creating circles on top of itself. It'll be kind of funny. Yeah, just infinite circles, and you can kind of tell because the bullets are transparent. So now all we need to do is make the length not just be constant, but also be increasing, which should be pretty straightforward. So len equals 0, len plus equal to like 3, I don't know, and instead of 100, put in len. This will give us a spiral. And if you want, you can also start len at a big value and change it, make it go down to 0, and that will create a spiral like the other way, like ending at the center. Yeah, very cool. Now I want to show you just a quick thing. Let's say I want it to stop creating the spiral and then have all the bullets move toward the player for a little bit, like get a kind of avoidance attack. So we're gonna have a variable called t as a counter, and then if t equals 200, sure, we're gonna do with object projectile, and whatever code I put inside this with object projectile is gonna execute for every single one of these. We're gonna do direction equals point direction object player x object player dot y. Point direction returns a value between 0 and 360 of the direction between this point and this point, which is what we want. X and y are like this current object projectile's position, and then speed equals like some slow value. Also, we don't want to keep creating these. We want to stop creating these at one point. So if t is less than 200. This is also the main, if you look at like yo-yos, the example avoidance in there, this is how you generally do avoidance. You have a t variable, you increment it by 1 every frame. I forgot to do that. And you either check if it's less than something, greater than something, or equal than something. And your thing is going to be really long script. You can break it up into parts if you want, but this is generally how it works. And let's also, well, let's see if this works, first of all. Yep. And then now we have to make them like go away, hopefully. So we don't have to type that in. You can imagine. You just type in plus 180, but a little bit later on. Or you can switch x and like the player x and player y with x and y, and that'll work too. Oops. All right. Also, I want to make a point here is if the player's dead and it tries to do this, what do you think is going to happen? Error, because unable to find any instance for object player. So what we have to do is make sure you wrap it with an instance exists object player. Always keep this in mind. What happens if you try to access the player position but they're dead? You don't want players to get an error playing your game. Okay. Yeah. Now here's I have an example with some code I've already written, which is to show you how to use scripts. So in this example, at time, this is another way to do it. Do avoidances. You do t plus equal to 1. You do switch t, and then this just checks if t equal to 50. It's just another way to kind of phrase it. Switch case statements. You can see it in the scr get music script. This will create 15 bullets. It'll be like kind of like confetti at time 50. And I want to make multiple confettis as time goes on from different points. So here's one confetti. So to do that, what I might do is copy this, and then let's say at a time 100, I want to make it at position 550, and then this one back at 250. So left, right, left. And then this is at time 150. So the problem here is that I'm duplicating a lot of code, which is not really a problem in some respects because it'll still work exactly how I want it to. But let's say I want to change the color of the confetti or something. I will have to change every single one of these times I copy pasted it. So instead, I will make a script. So I'm going to call this scr make confetti. I'm going to paste this in here, get rid of the case, we don't need that. And then this will create at this position scr make confetti. So I can just replace this with scr make confetti with all these instances. So already the code looks a lot cleaner and it's easier to maintain. But what if I want to make confetti appear at different locations? What if I want to do 250, 150, and then different locations every time? Is this really the right position? Yeah. Here's how we do that. We can, instead of 250, you can use the variable called argument 0, argument 1. So I encourage you, remember that if you find yourself repeating code, you can oftentimes drag it out into a script. It'll make your life a lot easier. So yeah, and now let's say I decided I want to use confetti in a bunch of parts in my avoidance fight because I like confetti. You can just, make scripts. You can have scripts inside scripts if you want to. Anyways, scripts are pretty cool. Lastly, just a really quick point, code style. This is a code lifted from a certain someone who shall remain unnamed. Some people like to get lazy with their code. If you try, and I cleaned it up in this version. You will be tempted to write code on the left because it's very fast to write and you don't care. But I encourage you to always, when you write code, write it like code on the right. Because if you ever ask someone for help and you show them this code, they're not going to want to help you. But if you show them this code, they're going to know what's going on and they'll be more likely to help you. Also, if you look at your code in a month and it's been a month since you last wrote it, you want to look at this. You don't want to look at this. You want to have comments. You want to have nicely named variables. Instead of this variable, we have like this variable. Write neat code. That's the point. I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. Please give me feedback on if this video helped or what I could do better for more videos potentially in the future. I try to go as fast as I can, but there's a lot to cover. So thanks for watching. Be sure to read the description. Best of luck making fan games. I really hope this helps people who don't know where to get started with code, and this gives them some small examples and gives them some tools to put in their toolbox, because the idea is I'm bad at explaining this metaphor, but I like the metaphor of the toolbox, and you just remember all the tools you have. Anyways, thanks for watching. Good luck. See ya.